A German-American economist and professor at the Harvard Business School, Theodore Levitt, once said that ideas are useless unless used. The proof of their value is in their implementation. Until then, they're in limbo. You're watching NAPTIP On The Move, and I'm Angela Agwigi. The National Action Plan on Human Trafficking 2022 to 2026, a policy document that guides anti-trafficking efforts in Nigeria, was approved by the Federal Executive Council in February 2022. It's 1 year now. Our package will bring you the implementation of this document so far by NAPTIP and relevant stakeholders. Don't go away.
Developed as a national policy document for combating human trafficking in Nigeria, the National Action Plan on Human Trafficking 2022 to 2026 was approved by the Federal Executive Council in February 2022 and presented to the public in April 2022 at the NAPTIP 25th National Stakeholders Consultative Forum.
The National Action Plan on Human Trafficking 2022 to 2026, which the development started as far back as 2020. The development was sponsored by the Switzerland government, and it was implemented by United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC. The main purpose of the National Action Plan is to set a benchmark for all interventions as it regards to trafficking in persons in Nigeria within the space of 2022 to 2026. Secondly, it also serves as a way of assigning rules and responsibilities to stakeholders in human trafficking. And lastly, it coordinates efforts of stakeholders in making sure that all interventions are effectively channeled to the proper avenue.
As a national document, the National Action Plan on Human Trafficking 2022 to 2026 was developed by NAPTIP and relevant stakeholders, including development partners.
We had series of technical workshop. The first one, which the output was a zero draft of the plan of action, in which several government agencies, relevant agencies, were present. Likewise, the representatives from the United States Embassy, the Switzerland Embassy. We also have in attendance United Nations agencies such as UNODC, we have UN Women, we have UNHCR, and a host of others. Not only that, we also have non-state actors, which are civil society organizations are present.
It was a very robust dialogue with all stakeholders. So that's where the role of expertise funds and other international partners, we provided technical support towards the development of that plan. NAPTIP led that process. So that plan, like I always tell people, is that it's a homegrown plan. there was an international consultant who made sure we had an international angle to it, meeting international best practices within the plan. So it was the whole year of planning, different meetings and workshops that led us to where we are today, having a national action plan for Nigeria.
After the development of the National Action Plan, we've started engaging with stakeholders at different levels on the implementation.
To enhance the full implementation of the National Action Plan, NAPTIP presented the document to the heads of relevant ministries, departments and agencies, as well as stakeholders. With the approval and public presentation of the National Action Plan on Human Trafficking 2022 to 2026, NAPTIP and its partners commenced implementation in the 5 thematic areas of the plan. The first is protection and assistance.
A lot has been achieved looking at each of these thematic areas. When we started the implementation, the first thing we did was to invite all heads of MDAs, those that have relevant roles to play in the implementation of the National Action Plan, to a dissemination workshop. The first pillar, which is protection and assistance, 2 different policy documents were also approved by the Federal Executive Council. The first one is the National Policy on Protection and Assistance to Trafficked Persons in Nigeria. The second one is the Protocol for Identification, Safe Return, and Rehabilitation of Trafficked Persons. This one talks about the kind of assistance that a trafficked person who has been rescued at host or destination country, the kind of services they are supposed to be given. They are not supposed to be treated as victims of other crimes, because they are just victims due to circumstances. It also states clearly how they will be returned. After they are returned to the country, what are the services that they can enjoy. So by the time they return back to the country, that is when the National Policy on Protection and Assistance now takes into play. Still under protection and assistance, when we talk about rehabilitation of victims of trafficking, sheltering is an important aspect of it, because once a victim has been identified, the next thing is sheltering. That is where he or she will be cancelled. While he or she is still there, family tracing will be done. If there are medical issues, everything is concluded while the sheltering. So the issue of sheltering is very paramount in protection and assistance. Now, during this period, we have renovated and restructured some of the agencies' shelter facilities. Not only that, IOM supported the agency in some of the renovation works. Likewise, FAIAB did.
NAPTIP wanted to improve standards of shelter, create new shelters, and these are things a lot of partners are doing. For us, Expertise France, we're supporting NAPTIP right now to refurbish, renovate the shelter and office space that was allocated by the Ondo State government. That is ongoing right now.
Prevention is the second.
People say prevention is better than cure. The agency has a public enlightenment department. They've had series of community dialogues, sensitization at marketplaces, sensitization at motor parks, and the rest. Recently, they engaged with ABC company, GUO, and Cross Country. The project was sponsored by Canadian government, and it was implemented by the ARC group.
The whole idea of prevention is to create awareness, create visibility, and educate persons at the community level, which is where a lot of victims of human trafficking are recruited. Expertise France in January 2021 commissioned a grants process with NACTAL. NACTAL is the network against child trafficking, abuse and labor. So we had that grant process for them to provide grassroots awareness, massive grassroots awareness on human trafficking and migration, which is across the country. So that project has been concluded. It was a one-year project. It's been concluded. We're analyzing the impact of that project.
Next is research and assessment.
The agency, in collaboration with IOM and state task forces in 3 states in the North Central, Benue, Plateau, and Nasarawa states, had a research on knowledge, attitude, and practices of people of North Central as it relates to trafficking in persons. It's an eye-opener for those of us that participated in the research. Series of capacity building have been conducted since the National Action Plan came into implementation. Law enforcement agencies have been trained, civil society organizations have been trained on how to combat human trafficking.
One of the key strengths that UNODC has is our ability to also do research on trends and patterns and different happenings around the world when it comes to human trafficking issues. One of the findings is the issue of technology-induced human trafficking, because with COVID there were also a lot of new things that came, and technology was one of the new things that came to being used for human trafficking. Just on the internet, victims are recruited, they are identified, they are exploited, they are trafficked, and everything happened without the trafficker and the victim even saying themselves. So technology has become one angle that law enforcement needs to focus on. And of course, the report also encouraged that state parties are able to provide up-to-date knowledge for law enforcement agencies on issues of trafficking using technology, and not just law enforcement agencies but also for judges. Judiciary education is also key, because they need to understand that when we say technology is being used, how they need to understand the how, so that they can appreciate the witnesses and the evidences that come to court and know how to proceed. And in that regard, we have done a couple of trainings also for NAPTIP investigators and prosecutors, and even including the federal prosecutors from the Federal Ministry of Justice.
Then, law enforcement, prosecution and access to justice.
Some of the activities that had been implemented as being contained in the National Action Plan include Judges Conference. This is a forum whereby judges are being sensitized on the provisions of the Trafficking in Persons Prohibition, Enforcement and Administration Act 2015 as it relates to each of the offenses that is contained in the Act. Not only that, we've had a series of capacity building workshops for law enforcement officers, not only NAPTIP officers, but even police, Nigerian Immigration Service, Nigerian Correctional Services, on identification of perpetrators. These two activities has resulted in the agency recording the highest number of convictions since inception of the agency in 2022. All the convictions that the agency has secured between the time that the National Action Plan came into implementation and now is 98 altogether. When it now comes to access to justice, recently we've had a series of judgments whereby traffickers are being punished in terms of jail imprisonment, and as well giving compensations to victims of trafficking. Recently we had a case whereby a victim was compensated with 5 million naira as a fine.
For law enforcement, it will also interest you to know that the Expertise France created what is called the Trafficking in Persons Clearance Application Portal. The need for the clearance application portal was to have an automated system to implement what is called the Trafficking in Persons Control of Activities of Organizations and Centers Regulations 2019 of the Federal Government of Nigeria. So that regulation controls activities of organizations and centers. Some of these organizations include labor recruitment organizations. It also includes travel and tour operators, persons going for educational excursions, people offering shelter services to victims of trafficking, and then people also going out for sporting activities. So these are guises recruiters, traffickers use to recruit and take people away from the country. That regulation, I'll call it giving strength to the NAPTIP Act. So controlling a specific line of activity that could be used to traffic persons.
For UNODC also, we have started under the prosecution component of the National Action Plan. We are doing a lot of interventions at different levels with national and international partners. Like for instance, at the national level, we have the Embassy Liaison Meeting, which brings together all the foreign nations and embassies in Nigeria, together with NAPTIP and other relevant stakeholders. And the purpose of the meeting is usually to discuss the trends and patterns of human trafficking as it affects their country. Also at the international level, we also have what we call the Liaison Magistrate Initiative, where prosecutors from Nigeria are deployed to other countries. And in this instance, we have Italy and Spain, and then from Nigeria. And we also have a partnership with the Siracusa International Institute for Human Rights in Sicily, where we bring together law enforcement agencies from European jurisdictions alongside with their Nigerian counterparts, different law enforcement agencies. NAPTIP is there, Nigerian Immigration Service is there, EFCC is there, NFIU is there. Because one of the things that reports have also showed is that if you follow the money, then you will be able to catch the criminals. We're part of the review also of that TIP law to ensure that whatever amendments that we want to propose to the National Assembly meets with global model laws when it comes to the protocol on trafficking in persons for Nigeria.
Finally, partnership and coordination.
Nigeria recently signed a memorandum of understanding with Gambia on how to suppress, punish, and prevent trafficking in persons, especially women and children, between the two countries. This signing was facilitated by FIAP. In terms of coordination, the agency has inaugurated 23 state task forces, all in all. But since the implementation of the National Action Plan on Human Trafficking started in 2022, we have been able to inaugurate that of Kwara and Taraba. We are working on 3 more in the next few weeks. The state task forces has gone to the extent that we now have a boot camp.
The National Action Plan has what you call the Monitoring and Evaluation Accountability Framework, and the key stakeholder, also one of the key stakeholders, because it's at different levels. You have technical level accountability framework, you have state level, then you have policy level. At the state level, we've started the engagement with state task forces, which have been established in Nigeria, and the goal is to actually go to all the 36 states of the country. The state task forces are comprised of different sectors of the economy of the state. And basically part of their TOR is also to do a lot of prevention and of course a lot of investigation, and then providing early warning signals to NAPTIP, because in the state task force composition you have law enforcement agencies, NSCDC, immigration, police, you even have DSS in some of the states, and then you have the traditional rulers, you have NGOs. So everybody using their mandates, the leverage on their areas of strength to bring value to the state task force operation in the different states. So last year we started the training of state task forces in Ondo, Delta, Lagos, Anambra, Ekiti, and we've trained them and subsequently provided support for them to be able to develop their work plans in line with the national action plans for Nigeria. And we are not even stopping at that in terms of the engagement with state task forces. We are also doing what we call the boot camp, which is like a scorecard workshop to bring all the state task forces together who are at different levels of development, and to have them assess, do a reflection, an internal reflection, and provide key promising practices and achievements they've been able to achieve in their states. And all of these promising practices and good practices that some of the state task forces were able to share during the boot camp has been documented into a compendium of good practices, which we intend to launch later on in the year.
The UNODC, Expertise France, IOM, FIAP and other partners are providing support to ensure effective implementation of the National Action Plan on Human Trafficking 2022 to 2026. Assessing the implementation so far, NAPTIP and partners are pleased with the activities and achievements in the first year.
It's been 1 year of implementation. I would say that I'm quite pleased with the ongoing processes in Nigeria, the collaboration amongst international development partners. It's great, more than ever before. So we are actually working together to ensure that NAPTIP implements, if not 100% of its first year activities, but when you hit the first year activity, when you hit 70%, I think that's quite an achievable feat to hit the 70% in first year of implementation. Because when those other activities would be dovetailed into the second year plan, and then we can better structure the second year plan. This also tells you, did we take too much? Did NAPTIP take too much as a priority for the first year, and then what can be done? So that's so for me, on a personal note, I think so far so good. Activities are being implemented in line with the guidance of the National Action Plan.
I would say so far Nigeria has done great, and NAPTIP has done well in terms of engaging with partners on the National Action Plan and making sure that everybody keys into it. It's not just a NAPTIP document, it is all our document, because we are all working towards it. And so I would give us a pass mark for the year one of the implementation of the National Action Plan.
The implementation of the National Action Plan has been fantastic. Only in 2022, the agency received 2,883 victims and potential victims of human trafficking. This is not done by only NAPTIP. It's as a result of coordination mechanism that NAPTIP has with other relevant stakeholders. And if we look at the implementation for the first year of the National Action Plan, the goal that has been assigned, the objective for the first year, if I give the implementation 80%, I have not overrated it. Because if you look at it, what the agency as a whole has achieved in the last 1 year has surpassed what we have achieved in individual years since the inception of the agency. We have kickstarted 2023 on a high note. Within the first 2 months in 2023, the agency has secured 19 convictions, which is a plus. Within the first 2 months in 2023, the number of victims rescued, it is more than what was recorded before the implementation of the National Action Plan started, which means that all duty-bearing agencies now know that it is our collective responsibility to make sure that we succeed in fighting human trafficking in Nigeria.
Implementation of policies and plans are key to ensuring success. With the level of commitment by NAPTIP, partners, civil society organizations, relevant ministries, departments and agencies in executing the National Action Plan on Human Trafficking 2022 to 2026, cases of human trafficking in Nigeria will be curbed to the barest minimum.
It's evident that a lot has been achieved in the first year of the implementation of the National Action Plan on Human Trafficking 2022 to 2026. Indeed, we can go on, but time won't permit. Our Victim Story segment is coming up next.
I'm 11 years old. I live in Abuja. One man called, promised my father, he said they carry me do farm, Okaba. Now we pack us, we reach Pali, he give us 1,000. He say more chop. Now with the chop, now we can see us. He tell us where to go. They tell us where we go do farm. Arrest us. I carry me for police. Police carry me for nothing. Thank you, NAPTIP, for taking picture of me.
For more inquiries and support, or to report cases of suspected human trafficking, violence against persons, and child abuse, please call NAPTIP hotline 0703 0000203 or the short code 627, or email us info@naptip.gov.ng. Visit our website www.naptip.gov.ng. Follow us on our social media platforms at NAPTIP Nigeria, or watch our videos on YouTube.
That's the size of our package today. Thank you for watching and see you again next week. My name is Angela Adwegi. Goodbye.